All that and more with Oliver Meyer later on as we broadcast the full interview that we did with him at LATC just last week. And before we get to all that, though, we're going to be taking your calls talking about the day's events and affairs with this Trump administration as the Trump administration bullied its way into Pittsburgh to meet with a bunch of political leaders that refused to meet with them. Apparently no one from the synagogue was willing to meet with them. The mayor was not willing to meet with them. The governor was not willing to meet with Trump, and why should they? This is the same anti-Semite who, as a group of white supremacist neo-Nazi scum, marched in Charlottesville. They realized, these Nazi scum, the night of their first night of their riots, they realized that they were marching. It was Friday night, and they were marching past a synagogue. And when they realized they were marching past a synagogue, the crowd of neo-Nazis split in two so that they could go around either side of the synagogue and fully envelop it. And as they strode by the synagogue, they issued the provocative chant. They changed the chant from "You will not replace us" to, when they were near the synagogue, saying "Jews will not replace us." And our anti-Semitic president said there were very fine people on both sides and defended that goddamn Nazi scum. Over and over, day after day after day. This is the same president that had anti-Semitic, neo-Nazi imagery in both his campaigns, his ad campaigns that he put on air, in his Twitter tweets. He hired known racist and anti-Semite Steve Bannon to help advise him on how best to hold down the blacks, the Jews, the Puerto Ricans, and the gays. And he claims he has no responsibility. Neo-Nazis marched on Charlottesville as they terrorized a congregation of Jewish worshipers on a Friday night at their temple, screaming, "Jews will not replace us." And 5 minutes later, that same group beat the hell out of a bunch of innocent students and counter-protesters. And this president said that that's okay. He is an anti-Semite. He is a racist. To say that he can't be an anti-Semite because his daughter converted to Judaism and he has grandchildren that are Jewish, to say that Trump is incapable of anti-Semitism as a result of that is the same thing as saying that a man is not capable of being misogynist if he's married to a woman. It's ridiculous. Of course you can be a misogynist if you're married, and of course you can be an anti-Semite while still having Jewish people in your family. Okay, well, that was only supposed to be about 10 seconds. I think I went a little bit further than that. But we're going to take a really super-duper short break. And when we come back, we'll be taking your calls, and a little later on, we'll be having a chat with Oliver Meyer, Associate Dean at USC and playwright of many, many plays, including the groundbreaking Blade to the Heat. And in addition to that, he has a brand new play out called Members Only. Let's take a really short break. We'll be right back. What's going on with Crack-a-lack, my peoples, how you doing? I'm Jerry Quickley. This is happening, and phone lines are open. We're taking your calls here at 818-985-5735. Again, the phone number here is 818-985-KPFK. Also, we're streaming the show live on YouTube. So if you go to YouTube and just search for Jerry Quickley, you'll be able to check out a YouTube live stream of the show. Check it out. We're taking your calls, 818-985-5735. Again, the phone number here is 818-985-KPFK. Let's give a listen to this first clip, and this is Brian Stetler from CNN giving a breakdown of some of the racist GOP language that has been invented around how a group of mostly women and children walking by foot to escape grinding poverty and violence somehow constitutes an invasion.
The Pittsburgh shooting suspect's hatred of Jews merged with his hatred of immigrants. to deadly results. He called migrants invaders, using the same dehumanizing language that's been saturating right-wing radio and TV.
This invading horde?
This is an invasion.
This is an invasion.
We may never know where the suspect heard these ideas or why he believed them, but we do know that the hate crime coincided with a rise in hateful language, from the InfoWars fringe to Fox's primetime lineup.
You have this invasion coming over every day.
Almost as soon as the migrant caravan formed in Central America.
It's a kind of invasion.
Fox News talking heads and President Trump made it out to be a major threat.
You do not have the right to come here. We did not invite you here. You cannot stay here.
Republican leaders echoed this line.
We have to treat this as an invasion.
And look at the online reactions.
This is an invasion. This is an act of attacking the United States sovereignty.
Scroll down on any of these videos on YouTube, and the fire was raging, with commenters screaming about an invading army, even though the migrants were 1,000 miles away and fleeing danger.
Yeah, so let's be clear. America is a little over 300 million people, and we let in just slightly over 1 million people a year. Slightly over 1/3 of 1% of our population is let in each year in terms of new immigrants. There are a couple of thousand desperate immigrants in this caravan that you just heard described with these horrific racist language. 2,000 people is literally 0.2 of 1%. Not of the country's population. No. It's 0.2 of 1% of the number of immigrants that we allow into the United States this year. How immigrants that we let into the United States this year will make up 1/3 of 1% of the U.S. population. And the migrants in this caravan seeking to come to America and apply for political asylum, which is a completely legitimate and legal thing to pursue, there's only 2,000 of these folks. So that means that they represent literally 1/5 of 1%, not of the American population, 1/5 of 1% of the million immigrants that we will allow to legally migrate to the United States this year. How the hell is it that 1/5 of 1% of the immigrants seeking admission to the United States for entirely legitimate reasons, how is it that 1/5 of 1% constitutes an invasion? Well, what does the other 99 4/5 represent? If 1/5 of them is an invasion, what are the other 99 4/5? What's up with that? I went to public school, but I could do the math. I could count 3, 4, 9, what? Taking your calls here, 818-985-5735. Again, is the phone number, 818-985-KPFK. Let me see. First up, let's talk to Thorne Oakenshield calling from Lake Town. Thorne, welcome to the show. What's the dealio?
What's up? Just wanted to call and say, maybe 1 week before the vote, good time to play Paul Weyrich's Goo Goo Syndrome video. It's something I've been pulling out a lot. Just kind of remind people that they don't want you to vote. They really spelled it out clearly. He's, the founding father of the conservative movement. Heritage Foundation, American Legislative Exchange Council, all that. He said it back in the day in the Reagan era. Goo Goo Syndrome. He's talking about he don't want good government. I don't want everybody to vote. Our voting leverage goes down as the voting population goes up. And I just think that it's a powerful, short, way to demonstrate, look, you got to get out there because the very fact that they don't want you to.
So the name of the film is Goo Goo Syndrome, and it's directed by Paul Weller of the Style Council. Is that right?
Yeah, man. Just 30 seconds of Paul Weyrich's ugly face talking about how he does not want everybody to vote. His Christian Coalition, conservative right-wing movement that he founded, or, their leverage goes down as the voting population goes up. It's an explicit admission that they are a minority fringe bunch of freaks. And when when the people at large get out and vote, they have no leverage.
There it is. Thorin Oakenshield from Laketown, thank you so much. The name of the film is Setting Suns by a band called The Jam. 818-985-5735 is the phone number. That's 818-985-KPFK. That's entertainment. You know that? Yes. I don't know why. I don't know why I'm also Paul Weller Style Council-ish today. Maybe because I love that band. It's been too long since I listened to them. Big shout out, big props to everyone who came through Zebulon the other night. The show was off the chain. Micah 9, big shout out to Freestyle Fellowship. Big shout out to Bus driver, Reagan Farquhar, holding it down, writing the best music for my librettos ever. Big shout out to D'Antoni Parks. He just was amazing set on the drums. So thank you, everybody who came through. Take your calls here, 818-985-5735. That's 818-985-KPFK. Let's give a listen to this next clip. This is from CNN earlier today. Trump showed up in Pittsburgh, and people of Pittsburgh weren't having it. They were telling the people of Pittsburgh weren't having it. They were telling Trump to F off. F off, we don't want you here. There were protests. People were literally arrested protesting Trump's presence. The mayor refused to meet with him. The governor refused to meet with him. And the people of the temple didn't want him there. Their families didn't want him there. Why? Because he's an anti-Semitic freak. Let's give a listen to the protests that erupted upon Trump's arrival in Pittsburgh today.
We're less than a block away here, Wolf. This is the protest. There are several thousand people in this protest. Now, it was one protest, then two, and then we got to this area. You can hear those sirens. That is the president now leaving this area. Protesters have been completely peaceful, but there are several different groups represented here. I want to show you, just Eddie, if you just sit around here. This area, that direction is where the synagogue is. All of those sirens you can hear are the commotion that law enforcement are making as the president is trying to leave. It has been completely peaceful, and at this point, it appears that they are actually trying to move these protesters out, which is going to be extraordinarily difficult if they expect to bring the president in this direction. They're trying to back people up. We have seen little more than tears in this neighborhood today, and it has turned into anger as the day has moved on, as people realize that the president is coming. This protest wasn't planned at all 24 hours ago, and in the last 24 hours, it has exploded.
It sounded like they had the Martians from that space invasion movie, Mars Attacks. It's what it sounded like. One of the Martians had a small microphone. We're taking your calls here at 818-985-5735. That's 818-985-KPFK. Let's next talk to Camille, who's calling from Hawthorne. Camille, welcome to the show. What's the dealio?
Thank you. Yes, Jerry. Yes, piggybacking on what you said in your opening about the neo-Nazi march. Now, my memory is serving me correctly. I think the march was... whose land is it anyway? Our land. Jews will not replace us. Whose land is it anyway? Our land, with these 400 torches. But let me tell you what was so telling. The very next day, those same neo-Nazis said, well, we support the president, but we don't like how he gave his daughter away, handed her over to those filthy, nasty Jews,
Oh, right. The crying Nazis said that, his Donald Trump's daughter was such a piece of feminine pulchritude, and she's such a perfect little being, but he's really angry that he sold his daughter off to that dirty Jew that he married. I think that was the quote that the crying Nazi gave shortly before fleeing and crying.
And Jerry, Donald Trump did not respond. So what that told me was, so you kicked your precious daughter and your son-in-law to the curb for that 29% of that twisted, perverted, racist little base that you have. That's what that told me, Jerry.
Yeah. Thanks for the call, Camille. Appreciate hearing from you. It's really simple. People are like, well, how can that be? It happens all the time. You know any black people who have married non-black people, particularly if they've married white people? Very often, what occurs, not all the time, every scenario, every family, every situation is different. But there are white families that are wildly uncomfortable with that. And usually, very often, the ones that make their peace with their son or daughter having married a black person, and God forbid they're real dark-skinned did, because that's 1,000 times worse as far as these racist bigots are concerned. But here's the net. They being racist who are uncomfortable with one of their offspring marrying a black person, those racists will generally find a way to essentially write off their racist feelings by accepting the good parts and the good aspects of whomever it is their offspring has connected with. So they'll say, for instance, oh, well, Bobby's different than most of the blacks because he's like this or he's like that. The only thing that Bobby is different from is Bobby has veered from your stereotype of all blacks. To believe that somehow you can have Jewish people in your family, to have grandchildren who are related to you by blood who are Jewish, and to believe that because you have Jews in your family, that you have banished and excised the ghost of anti-Semitism. Not so much, especially with Trump, whose father was a berobed, violent Klansman arrested by New York City police on the streets of Queens County for engaging in Klan violence. And his grandfather trafficked women and children. His grandfather was a thief, a hustler, and a pimp who trafficked human beings, women and children. Donald Trump comes from a sea of foreign criminals who have brought their crimes to America and has remained a criminal dynasty generation after generation after generation. Is it shocking to believe that he can write someone off as being decent or good? What about his bookkeeper from the Trump organization? Trump always liked, quote unquote, Jews counting his money. He didn't want to see black people working on the floor of his casinos. He especially didn't want to see any black person working in an accounting department because blacks are no good with that. They steal, but the Jews are fine. I only want Jews counting my money. This is a quote from Donald Trump. Do you really think someone who has such a loathsome opinion of everyone who's not a rich white Christian man is incapable of creating a superstructure in his head that allows him to live with the horror of his daughter converting to Judaism? The problem isn't that his daughter is Jewish. The problem isn't that his son-in-law is Jewish or that some of his grandchildren are Jewish. The problem is the other Jews. It's not Jared and his family. We know them. They're okay. We prefer if they weren't Jewish, but Jared and his family are okay. The problem is those other Jews. We can pretty much treat Jared, like he's one of us because he's not a real Jew because he's part of the Trump family. But those real Jews, those are a problem. And that's how white supremacists and anti-Semites accommodate their anti-Semitism and racism so their heads don't explode. Taking your calls here at 818-985-5735. That's 818-985-KPFK. Let me see. Next up, let's talk to Jeanette calling from San Gabriel Valley. Jeanette, welcome to the show. What's the dealio?
Hi, Jerry. It's Janet. Oh, my God. Jerry, I am livid at how it's just ignored that the people who are fleeing from Honduras are doing so because of the chaos that has been instilled there by the U.S.
Right.
I can't stand that they're calling Southern Native folks invaders on our own ancestral land. It's just so ridiculous to me. It's so ridiculous that these white people have the audacity to use their national TV platform and call Native people, Southern and Northern, invaders. These are our lands, God damn it. We didn't cross the borders. How many times do we need to say that? Oh, my God, thank you for taking my call.
Right, thank you for the call, Janet, sister. I appreciate what you're saying, and I feel your frustration. on a daily basis during the Trump administration. My head wants to explode. I find it difficult to maintain composure and not be apoplectic when discussing these white supremacists because what they're doing is so obvious and horrific and hurts so many people. And even worse, we're being sold out by mainstream media who refuses to discuss these white supremacists in the simple, basic terms they are. These white supremacists are simple, basic racists. And we try to dress it up with 18 different meanings behind this and that. Well, when Trump said nationalist, he didn't mean this because he said, when I said nationalist, here's what I meant. No, you meant you're a white supremacist. You can't decide you're going to give a word a new meaning. If Donald Trump calls me nigger, I know what he means. He can't tell me, well, when I say nigger, what I actually mean is ... All right, Janet, you effed me up. You got me all worked up. Taking your calls here at 818-985-5735. That's 818-985-KPFK. Let's give a listen to this clip from CNN. This is Allison Camerata talking to David Gregory, who connects the caravan comments, the horrific racist caravan comments coming out of right-wing media to the slaughter of 11 Jews who were worshiping at a synagogue in Pittsburgh.
From all of the vitriol and hate rhetoric about the caravan that's, some 2,000 miles away from our border, and the gunmen in Pittsburgh who referenced that and somehow turned it into an attack on Jews.
Yeah, well, first of all, I just want to say we have to be careful about having a discussion that is going to blame the president or another political leader for these acts of violence. And in that way, tone does matter. In that way, our words do matter.
But I mean, he didn't pull the trigger, right? But you don't...
Right, but if I finish, is that at the same time, we cannot ignore that relationship. We cannot ignore the relationship between the president criminalizing immigration and saying, this shooter, what was so painful, among the things that were so painful about what he did is not just targeting Jews in such a vulnerable time during Shabbat, but to target this group Hayas, which is the immigrant group, which is doing work that is a fundamental Jewish value, but it is in a secular way, it's a fundamental American value, which is looking after the stranger and the immigrant. So there's no question that a president who has waged rhetorical war, and worse, and you think about family separations, on immigrants and suggesting that they're vermin and they're infesting the country, you cannot ignore how that can be heard by people who hate immigrants, who are afraid of anyone who they think is going to change their way of life, and who hates Jews. So, I think that part of it is awful. And I don't fully agree with Charles in the sense that I do think words matter, all words matter. So when the president says the right thing, speechwriters work for the president and they write out his speeches. But he has a special obligation, given the language he's used that are anti-Semitic dog whistles, just like he uses racist dog whistles, to go much further to denounce this kind of hate, because rightly or wrongly, there are people who support him, who think he's sympathetic.
Well, yeah, if he said some of those things at his rallies and meant it off script, I think that it might be more convincing. Yeah. But there's this, as we know, bifurcation between what he says at teleprompter Trump and then what he says at the rallies, where he continues to insult people and gin them up.
Exactly. Again. If he's flipping back and forth, literally 1 moment to 1 hour to the next, and saying one thing in the teleprompter, and then literally signaling, sometimes in the speech, signaling that he doesn't really believe what he's saying, or right after that, either in Twitter form or coming out to go to a helicopter or to a plane and saying something completely different, he is reducing.
Speak on it, Charles.
The importance of those words. Yeah. Not me. Right? So he is saying that those words don't matter. Not me.
That last voice you heard there was Charles Blow. This is Speed Round. Only got a couple minutes left. We're going to try to get to as many of you as possible. Let's start with Mary calling from West L.A. Mary, 30 seconds or less. What's the dealio?
Oh, I just wanted to say, when you talk about invaders, these people invading, what were white people? I mean, we were all invaders. We took the land away from the Indians. And I want to say to these people, well, now you know how the Indians feel. You know, this happened to them.
Right. I thought when white people came here, you were just Christ representatives on earth taking the land from the dirty black and brown hordes who didn't deserve it because they're not Christian. So read a book, hippie. Learn your history. Speed round. Next up, let's talk to Joe calling from Hollywood. Joe, welcome to the show. 30 seconds or less. What's the dealio?
Hello. There's 3 things I want to say.
30 seconds or less.
People are not the sole heirs to America. Second, the Gadsden Purchase of 1860. Hispanics have been here for centuries. Third, Native Americans are part of Hispanic culture. You can't be one with
No, I fully disagree. Sorry. I'm not Native American, so I can't speak on what their culture is, but I'm really uncomfortable with someone saying the vastly diverse hundreds of independent native nations that made up Great Turtle Island is in fact Hispanic culture. They were their own separate, distinct cultures. Was there a mixing of some of the cultures at some point? Of course. But First Nations peoples had their own cultures.